Hi everybody, welcome to Dandelion Cottage and Watercolor Wednesday. I'm Leslie Watkins. I hope you're all well. It seems like it's been a little while. I missed you last week. As some of you may know, it was my birthday, and so I was surprised by a trip out of town, a wonderful kind of a whirlwind two-night event where the tall man surprised me with my baby brother, who's not such a baby, but it was absolutely wonderful. And I was hoping that while I was away, I was actually in Stonington, Connecticut, which is a beautiful seaside town. I was hoping I would share some watercolor painting with you, but it just didn't work out that way, though I did take some terrific reference photos, and I may be doing a kind of a wintry beach scene landscape painting for you in the near future. But today I've got something very, very fun. We're going to continue with this storybook critter theme. Today I'm going to paint you a chipmunk and a flower, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And also stay tuned because I'm going to tell you how you can join me for a free watercolor class online that's coming right up. So you don't want to miss that. One thing you do need to do, though, is you need to subscribe to Notes from Dandelion Cottage Design, and that is my newsletter, and I'll have a lot more information in there. But let me show you what I have for you today. This is going to be super cute. So here are some flowers. These are, this was part of my birthday Valentine gift item, and I just absolutely love these flowers. They're absolutely beautiful. I think you can see them pretty well right there. All right, and I'm going to be creating a watercolor that I will then be adding to my little book that I'm working on, and I will show you more of that tomorrow. So if you're interested in how to create handmade books and journals, I'm going to be continuing on that theme with paper crafting Thursday, and that is also at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be really fun. What I have is I've got the Storybook Friends stamp set. We're going to be using some of these stamps today. I'm looking at Happy Spring. And I've got a piece of my watercolor paper. This is the Fluid 100, so this is a very stiff paper. It's 140 pound, it's cold press, it's archival, 100% cotton, and so it's a very nice quality paper. Now I need to score this, so this is how it's going to go. Here's my little book, and I'm going to put this in the center here, something like this, and I want it to have a little bit of a border, so I'm going to measure, and that should give me about 1/4 of an inch, and it does. And so from the fold to the edge here, it's at 4 inches, and that's going to give me a little extra space here on the following page. So I'm going to go ahead and take my Fluid 100, and I'm going to get out my trimmer, and I'm just going to score this at 4. And this is going to help me to see where the area is for me to be painting on. And I'm gonna give this a really good press because this is thick paper. Okay, there. So it looks something like this. That's what we want. All right, so let me clear the area here because we're about to get started. I have 3 colors. I've got yellow, red, and blue. these are watercolors. If you're following along with the re-inkers, you can use water-based inks as well. I'm going to paint this with the flap on the left-hand side, and I'm going to be working in this area here. So let me pull up my reference and make sure that we are recording. And looks like we are. You can use what? Okay, and I just have a little Chipmunk reference on the screen here that I'm looking at, and I'm just going to do a light sketch. I'm going to zoom you in for this so that you can see a little bit better. Here we go. So I want to have him sort of centrally located on the page. I don't want him too big, but just get his little body, his head, and I'm going to let his tail come curling around, something like that. Now I want to leave some room on top for my stamping because I want my sentiment to be along the top. And I'm going to do that with a banner. I'm going to create a banner that I'm going to add to it, but I know that that's the area that I want it to be. And I'm not spending too much time on this sketch because I will continue to draw with the brush as the painting develops. And also, you know, this doesn't have to be a masterpiece, okay? It's just a little illustration, and I just want to be able to share enough with the viewer so that they recognize this as a chipmunk. That's the goal. I'm going to turn his head so that he's looking a little bit more at me, and he's got this great big beautiful eye. How many of you, tell me in the comments below, how many of you have chipmunks that visit you in your yard? Because I love chipmunks, and I am very fortunate where I live here in Northwest Connecticut to have chipmunks that will come and visit me on the deck in the summer when I'm having my coffee, or sometimes I paint out there. And here comes my little friend looking for a nut. I keep a jar of walnuts next to the door so that I always have a steady supply, so that they know that this is a good place to come and visit. All right, I think I need to make his nose a little pointier. Now I have in this little container, I keep my kneaded eraser. Okay, so this is a kneaded rubber eraser, and these are wonderful. You can sort of pull on them and they'll start to stretch as they get warmed up. And then you can shape it any way you like. And this will remove excess graphite from your pencil, from the paper, without harming the surface of the paper. And one of the things that you want to be careful of with watercolors is that as you're painting, you don't abrade the surface, because that will cause the water and the paint to go down into the rough areas. So you want to keep it nice and smooth. You also want to be careful that you're not wearing hand cream, because that can repel the paint as you apply it. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. Let me find his mouth. He's got a little mouth under here. And he has a couple of whiskers. And I'm just doing details now. I've got him sort of roughed in. And then I'm just going to check that my lines are pretty good. He's actually leaning back a little bit more, like so. Get his chin. All right. Now there's my little fellow. Okay. So just a quick sketch. Now I've got these beautiful flowers, and I thought what I would do is give him a little bouquet here that he's investigating. So even though I know these aren't native flowers to New England, they are astromerias. So this is a kind of a florist's flower, which is absolutely beautiful. And they have a very long vase life if you keep them trimmed, which is what makes them so wonderful, because you can have them for weeks in the house sometimes. But I'm just going to indicate some kind of blossoms here and a couple of leaves. So I'm just going to add the leaves in areas that I think will enhance the design. Okay, and then we'll be ready to begin painting. So there we go. That's the sketch. Now I'm going to take my largest brush. All right, so I'm using a pointed round. This is a number 7 because I'm working as small as I am. This brush will be large enough so that I don't get hung up with too many details. And all I'm going to do is put a little wash over my friend here. This is just a pale color, and I'm going to reserve the areas for my highlights and the white areas. So this chipmunk has a little bit of a kind of a white ring around his eye, so I want to preserve that. He gets a little bit lighter under his chin. And I go a lot more into values and why values are so important in painting in my online course. And you can find out more about that at the Watercolor Paintbox.com. Just type in watercolorpaintbox.com and you will get information about the classes there. But for now, I'm just keeping it simple. I also want to get a little bit of my flower color established, so I'm just going to do the same with the flowers. Okay. And then the leaves. Now because I'm just using primaries, red, yellow, and blue, I'm mixing my greens as I go. So I'm taking some yellow and blue and I'm mixing those two together to get a nice kind of a medium green. I'll just get these leaves started. Alright, so there is my very simple kind of a, what I would call an underpainting. Nothing to it, just kind of establishing the shapes on the page. And now I'm going to switch to a slightly smaller brush. For those of you who are curious, this one, well, I've worn off all the markings on the brush, but I'm going to say that this is either a 4 or a 6. And I'm mixing up a darker tone now, and I'll show you what that looks like. Let me move this over here a little bit. So I'm just taking what's on my palette, all right, and adding more pigment because I want this to be a darker tone, and I'm using water to adjust the consistency of the paint. So I'm using a little less water now, and now I've got a kind of a brownish color here, and that's just fine. And I'm still not going full strength, but a little bit darker, so I can begin to indicate where some of these stripes are. There we go. And I can get his eye started. I want to leave a little highlight there. There's his eye. And I can kind of splay the brush a little bit and create some little strokes. I also have very little paint on the brush right now. It's sort of a what I would call a dry brush. And he's got a little ruff around his neck. Okay, so he's starting to come along a little bit now. His fur has a kind of a golden quality about it, so I'm going to warm that up a little bit. Just add some paint, blend that in. Get his foot. And then a little more yellow. Warm that up. Okay, now at this stage, I'm actually paying more attention to the drawing because I want to make sure that now that the painting is getting more developed, I'm committing more to the specifics. So I'm being a little more careful, and I'm going to grab a paper towel here. So I just want to share my paper towel. This is how the feline friends in the house do their paper crafting with my paper towels. Now I can use this to remove excess moisture from my brush. And that's going to help me to create more of a linear feeling as I develop the texture of his or her fur. Okay, and just getting that eye stripe marked out. looking pretty good. Cute ear. And then he has his other ear. He's listening for hawks and other predators. And again, going around the edge, I'm going to take the excess moisture off my brush and splay those edges a little bit, and I can get a kind of a, like a little broken line that's going to indicate the texture of the fur going back away into space there. Now the tail has some sort of indistinct striping on it. It's a little bit darker. There's more sort of a black areas in the fur. So I just want to get this started, get the shape. And then where I can see the bottom, because it kind of flips over, there's a little bit of a light area showing. So it's looking something like that. Now I'm going to go back into my palette, and this time I'm going to take more of my blue, a little bit of red that's going to give me a dark kind of a violet tone. All right, and then I can take some yellow to neutralize the violet so it's a little more muted. Okay, so that's going to give me a nice dark tone that I can use for his tail. And again, going to remove excess moisture from my brush. You know, I think a lot of the secret about watercolor painting that some people may struggle with is how to control the amount of water on the brush. And you can use a variety of ways to do that. So as I paint off to the side here, I also have a sponge, okay, and this I can dab my brush onto to remove excess moisture. I've got my paper towel, and as you get more practice in, you also will find that something like a tissue or a rag, like a terry cloth rag, they all have different degrees of absorbency. So they're going to remove varying amounts of water from your brush. That's going to help you to control the consistency of the pigment that you're using, and also you'll learn how to do the things like painting wet and wet and washes, how to control edges, making hard and soft edges. So I'm going to be talking a little more about that in the free watercolor class, Zoom class, coming right up. It's going to be on February 28th, which I think is a Friday, at 7 p.m. You're all invited. The way you find out how to join us with the link and what you'll need if you want to follow along is by subscribing to Notes from Dandelion Cottage. So just go to my website, dandelioncottagedesign.com, and subscribe to Notes. And once you get the get your name on there, you will be able to get notifications about what's coming up and how to join in. So let me just, I've lost my reference here. There we go. Right, now I'm going, you can see that his eye has dried a little bit lighter than when it looked when I first put it on there. So I can go back in with another layer of the darker color and help to darken that up a little bit. Okay, and I may have to do that a couple of times. And I'm just getting a little, some of these sort of medium tones on here, so sort of middle tones to help model the form a little bit. And I'm going to use a little bit, kind of a pinkish color for his mouth. I can see a little bit of pink there. His nose. And get that stripe under his eye. Alright, so he's coming along. I need to give my flowers a little more attention. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take my slightly darker, more concentrated color mixture, and I can start to draw some of these petals. They have a kind of a stripy, streaky design on them, so I can capture some of that. And I'm not drawing every single one. I'm just selecting a few of them here to give the impression of a bouquet. Now there are some shadow areas, so I can go darker still, indicate those. And just a couple of strokes. back to my green, a little bit darker. So slightly more blue than yellow this time. More pigment. And maybe what I'll do is I'm going to take some plain water and just add a little puddle to soften the edge here to indicate a kind of a ground plane. All right, I can do the same thing over here. Just kind of plain water, and just add a touch of color to indicate something going on in the background here. So a little vignette. Okay, it just helps to make it look like a little scene instead of having these subjects cut out. There we go. Right, and then for the last stage, I'm now switching to my smallest brush. Oops. So here is this is a number 4, okay, and I wouldn't go any smaller than a number 4. There are some teensy little micro sized brushes that, you know, 1-hair brushes, and my recommendation is that always that you use the largest brush that you can get away with, because it'll help you from getting too hung up on the minutia. And I know the temptation is great when you're working on something of this nature, these tiny little critters, and you see all the little whiskers and hairs, but just, you know, select a few of those things and leave the rest to the imagination of the viewer. Going back and adding a little more texture. Just put my hand in the wet place down here, so I'm just going to clean that up a minute. A little damp there. I'm going to leave that to dry a little more before I work in that area. So you want to keep moving around your picture as you work. It helps to give places a chance to dry, and it also helps you to see how the entire picture is developing at the same time. You don't want to do a you know, a patch by patch, because everything that you paint in one area is going to affect what you paint in the other. So you want to make sure you have a a full vision of how the painting is progressing. And get his cheek. The area under his eye is still not dark enough, so I'm going to go back into my darker mixture. Just a little bit, just like that. Now when I'm painting on camera like this, I'm very nearsighted. And so I can't really see what I'm doing, so it may look a little rough. And what I'll often do is once I'm finished with the videoing, I will go back and get my head closer to the picture and just make any little adjustments, because I'm not able to see everything so well as I'm working. And also giving the painting a chance to dry helps me to adjust my values a little bit better. Okay, so I'm happy with him for the moment. I'm going to go ahead and give him a little whisker here. And maybe a couple of darks on my leaves. So again, mixing up a very dark green now. I can get some of the veins on these leaves, a little bit of the shadow. And that's enough. Maybe one more leaf going back into the distance here. Something over here. Okay, and then I can add a couple of strokes in the foreground, kind of indicating some grass or some foliage, a little something. It could be have a little warmth. Maybe there's some soil. And there we go. Okay, so that is our little scene. I'm going to need a little more attention to his eye over here. Okay, now I'm going to I'm going to add a little, once this is fully dry, I'll be able to add a little more texture, a little more of the indication of the fur on his tail. But for now I'm going to leave that. And I'm going to go to my stamp. So I have a scrap of Very Vanilla here. And where's my stamp set? Okay, it's somewhere within reach. I just don't see what I did with it. Here it is. I put it on the shelf. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to grab the Happy Spring. If you're a calligrapher, of course, you could do a beautiful job of writing this, but I am not such a good calligrapher. Not yet, maybe someday. I'm just going to use a neutral tone here. This is called Pebbled Path, and it's a wonderful kind of a grayish brown. And I'm just going to make sure I've got plenty of ink on there. Get that centered on there. There we go. And now with my snips, I'm just going to cut this like so, and then I'm going to go in the center and create a little banner, both sides. Alright, so there's my sentiment, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my bone folder, I'm going to make sure this is good and dry so I don't smudge my ink. And this ink is wonderful. This is, the ink on the ink pads is a water-based ink, so you can use it to add water to and to paint with. Just want to be very careful I don't smudge it here. And I'm just kind of bending, just giving the paper a little bit of a curl with my bone folder. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the ends in the opposite direction. So there we go. And then I want to kind of, I'm just going to fold this back on itself gently. Alright, so I have something that looks like this. Now with my glue dot, I'm going to put glue dot on the front like so, and I'm just going to fold this like so. And the same thing on the other side. Just press that right on there. Now I have this cute little banner. I'm just going to hold that for a minute, let the heat from my fingers soften that glue so it sticks. Give that a good press. There we go. And that's going to go at the top of my page like so. Okay. So there's my happy spring. And I've got room down here to add another label if I choose to. I have to think about that. You could also just have something at the bottom, but I'm going to keep this up on the top. I'm going to add a little something down here. And this then is going to go into my book. Just like so. Okay. And the inside piece is going to form a little pocket. So what I can do here is I can find the center. This is 5 inches wide, so 2.5 is the middle. And then I have my 1-inch punch. I'm just going to slip that halfway, just like so. So I have a little thumb hole. So now when I attach my page into my book here, I can glue it on these two ends, and then that's going to form a little pocket that I can put surprises in here. So more on that tomorrow. Okay, I just wanted to get the image ready for today. So I hope that gave you some ideas. I hope that inspires you to do a little bit of artwork for your journals. And I hope you'll come back and join me tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time for Paper Crafting Thursday, where I show you how the little book is coming together. So until then, stay well, stay happy, stay creative, and in the meantime, don't forget, subscribe to Notes from Dandelion Cottage, because there's going to be a very exclusive invitation to my followers to come and join me in a free live Zoom watercolor class. So please do that as soon as possible, because it's just about a week away. All right, take care. I'll see you next time.